Real Dad Talk, episode 71, Fatherhood.
Welcome everyone. Chris B here along with Rob K. How you doing, Rob?
Chris, I'm okay. A lot going on in the world, a lot to think about. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. And on that note about a lot going on in the world, I want to have you introduce our guest, Armin Arm. Thank you so much for taking time to join us.
My guys, thank you for having me. Didn't think I was gonna be on a show called Dad Talk without being a dad, but I'm all for it.
You know, we didn't either. We didn't either. But then, Rob, why don't you tell the listeners what caught your eye and why Armin's actually here today?
Well, it's important for kids to have support generally, and Armin and I were at a basketball practice several weeks ago, and we're watching over our sons, our nephews, and we're there for the support because growing up old school, everything was different. We didn't have that. We didn't have the family, everyone generally being there during the occurrence of practices and whatnot in games. So what I really loved was Armin was there supporting, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Because real dad talk is about fatherhood. It's about parenting. It's about what our future looks like, because there's so much going on presently in the world that we're worried about, but we got to worry about right now. And Armin, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys.
And I gotta start with "Candle of the Devil." Like, love it. It's a solid hit with Nas.
Thank you.
But I want to start with top three rappers. What are your top?
Rappers for me, it's
Wow,
always been Nas. That's why that song was like a real dream come true, of course. Nas, Tupac, and Eminem, I gotta say.
Nice.
If I
So
had to pick, but obviously I'm like a real hip hop head and I love, a lot of rappers. But if I had to pick, those would be the three.
all lyricists. Crazy. So Armin,
Always what I've been into, lyrics and substance and having fun and stuff is always cool. But at the end of the day, I'm into like the real art of it. You know what I mean?
yeah, you got a message to say, and that's what dads. I mean, being a dad, that parenting message that we get across. You were doing it that day, with your nephew. I mean, we all have our nephews when we don't have kids, and we're like, hey sister, hey brother, I'll take
Yeah,
your kid out as bait for a minute, right? Let me see what I can catch,
for sure.
right? We did that whole thing, but then we knew we were taking it back,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't our responsibility, but how have you come into play with your nephew's life?
Yeah, man, my brother has, well, I got basically three nephews and a niece, and then like close friends, kids, I guess also. But I grew up without a dad in my life. My pops passed away when I was only one, and my mom never remarried. And my uncles always played like a big role in everything we did. I grew up in the Netherlands. I was born in Glendale, but I grew up in the Netherlands for the first 18 years of my life. My dad's side of the family was over there, and I just had one uncle. And then my mom is the oldest of seven siblings, and they all lived in LA. And we used to like visit here, through pretty much every summer. So growing up, the uncles that I had over here, like three, four uncles, they all played a big role, each of them in different ways. So once I became an uncle, that always stuck with me, you know what I mean? So, I'm nothing like super special, but I try to be there and do my best for sure. Be involved in every way I can. And one of my nephews, Marcel's, he's a real baller. He's super dedicated to this basketball thing, so I try to be there as much as I can. Because I was that kid too that was super into basketball, and I didn't have nobody come with me. So I know he appreciates it, and I enjoy it at the same time. So yeah,
Yeah, with uncles, there was stuff that I wouldn't talk to my mom and pops about,
right.
but God knows, uncles,
No, 100%.
I got to talk to you.
It's definitely a different relationship, right? They say it's obviously the closest thing to having your own kids, but it's definitely a different dynamic. Yeah, and I try to have relationships with each one different way, you know?
Sure.
So yeah.
The
Uh,
impact you make.
Go ahead.
I was just saying the impact you make on the family and the nephews, and that it goes a lifetime, because they will forever remember whatever you did, age 6, age 7. And can you recall a memory when you were growing up when an uncle was there for you at a time that you remember from now?
Yeah, so many, bro. Like, my uncle in the Netherlands, he was always there, just, as much as he could to fill in that void. But then I had uncles here that, when I was into basketball, one of my uncles was kind of like me now. He taught me all the basics, like, how to do a layup, how to do this, how to do that, you know what I mean? And these type of things give you confidence too, that you have someone. I really looked up to them. Then even as I got a little bit older, one of our uncles, he was always kind of with all his nieces and nephews. He was financially helping everybody and co-signer on the car, and things that we couldn't afford anything at that time, and he would always step in. He wasn't super rich or anything, but he was okay, and he was willing to, you know what I mean? I remember when I got my student loan, he was the co-signer. So like just things like always stepping in whenever he had to, and even helping my mom at times, you know what I mean? So yeah, there's so many memories from the age of even like my aunt taking us to Disneyland and her being the cool one, and that's the one we wanted to go with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, all the way till teenage years and into college. So for sure.
So who's your favorite uncle?
That's kind of tricky. See, my nieces and nephews, they really only have me. So
Right? It's an
I'm the
easy answer for them.
I'm the favorite uncle, and I'm kind of like the cool uncle to them. But yeah, I had different uncles, different favorites for different reasons, bro, for sure.
So
Yeah.
overall, the experiences that you've come up with, raised with, uh, there are outside the family, there are people that coaches, uncles, there are people that are significant to you in your, in you being raised. Uh, is there any lessons that you learned in general that were like life lessons coming through life?
Yeah, from outside people. You said coaches, which reminds me that like my basketball coach from the age of like I want to say 13 to like 16 was like super influential. Um, he was like a American black dude from Louisiana. Again, I was growing up in the Netherlands, so um, and he just instilled that confidence. You know what I mean? He was really talking about basketball, but that bled into like other aspects of life. But I strictly remember not even thinking about what I didn't really know what confidence even was yet. You know what I'm saying? When he instilled it in us, like when you on the court, you got to believe you better than that guy, and you got to tell yourself, I'm gonna kill this guy right now. These are the type of things I tell my nephew now. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
yeah, and it's really dope because like through social media and stuff, literally about 3-4 months ago, that same coach found me, and he's like, yo, me and my family still talk about you all the time. And you know what I mean? So we kind of reconnected, which was really dope. But yeah, I don't know if he even knows how much of an impact he had on my life. You know what I'm saying? Like we've had conversations, but we never really went that deep. So
Have that heart to heart.
go
So
Bob
here's the
Miller.
thing though, you were open. Your mind and your heart was open to accept that
Right.
from someone like that, right? I mean, you got kids out there who for their own life's reasons, they don't have their father in their life. And they may be resentful of that because other kids do. And and they're trying to play the role of a figure in that child's life, and the child's not responding. So just like I guess that coach, if you weren't being responsive, or if your niece and nephew's not being responsive, what would you tell that person to keep trying to be involved in that kid's life?
Yeah, at the end of the day, for me, it's like about building a relationship, and we all do it in our own little way. And I've always been very adamant about not trying to, force anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, because sometimes my mom would be like, "Yo, go," especially when they were younger, "You go play." I'm like, "Yo, relax. I know how I do it." You know what I mean? And like,
Hmm.
I just kind of do it in my own chill, kick back way, and I feel like, they accept it. And for anyone else, it's like, the kid, you don't know what kind of emotions they going through. So for me, it's just like I try to find my moments where we can have certain moments, you know what I mean? Certain bonding moments, and throughout the years that builds. So yeah, you just gotta understand. I think that the kid is, just a kid and he doesn't know any better. So you're just gonna keep going. And I never try to be too preachy and things like that. You know what I mean? You try to give them the lessons and like your own different approaches. And so yeah, I mean, what do
How
you
old,
got?
how old are your nieces and how old are your nieces and nephews?
Right now, my Marcel's about to be 13, and his sister is she's 11, almost 12, and then a 10-year-old, and then a little 2-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah.
The 2-year-old's the one who
Oh yeah, he took
mellows it
all
out for
the
you
other
to go
ones
back
already.
and deal
Yeah.
with the other ones.
Now it's all about Matt. His name is Max. His 2-year-old for sure.
Well, it's some different times that we live in compared to when we were raised, right? Old school versus new school. And there were some flaws in old school, as we saw. And then, there's definitely some flaws in new school parenting. And you see it. There's nephews and niece that are that you look after, and you see over time stuff is changing. Our environments, the arena that we live in is changing. So I'm going to start with this. What was something from old school that we used to say, the parents used to say, like, hey, this works, or you got to do this, and then it didn't really play out? I think about this night and day with my parents. I talked to my dad earlier, and literally we had a conversation about this. But it's like something where it's like, whatever you guys are telling us, I get it, but it really didn't work. Like, let's say this was to build trust, but it really didn't build trust. Well, do you have any examples, any thoughts on that?
I think you might have to start with an example so I understand more where you're going. But I think the big difference now is this social media era, and all these kids are the first generation growing up in this era. And I don't know what, I mean, we already kind of see it, right? But like, it's creating very different humans just because human interaction has changed so much. You know what I'm saying? The way they communicate with friends, once they're going to start, dating and stuff, I don't know how they're going to talk, you know what I mean? Because we had to really go up to girls and like face their parents. And like, it was a certain respect that whether you wanted to or not, you had to show. And like, you know what I mean? Like, these things are just so different now. And that, I guess, that's where me just being an uncle comes into play, because I don't really know what the right thing is. Like, should they have a phone at the 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds? Should they not?
We don't know either, dude.
On
You don't
Instagram,
know. I don't know.
TikTok, all the friends have it. What do you do? We have these talks with friends sometimes, and they dealing with these dilemmas, and I'm like, man, yeah, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
So, like, when
Anybody knows.
the story I was talking about earlier was my dad, when I got my permit to get a car, or to have my driver's license, permit license, my dad was like, I don't care if the DMV passed you, I'm gonna pass you. So I couldn't drive on the road until he gave me his inspection and his road test. So we're having a laugh about it. My dad has some health issues in the past several months. So anything that keeps our spirits up is always good, right? So we're talking about how, like, when I was a kid, he put cones up around their house, parallel parking, and of course I hit the cones. My dad's like saying everything vulgar, but in another language. But it's like it goes back to old school, right? Where that old school parenting, yeah, I'm a rough around the edges sometimes, but it really kind of kept me in check in a sense. Where
Right.
this new age parenting, I think I'm very carefree, not carefree, but with my kids now, I don't want to offend. I don't want to have other people offended. You know what I mean? Like we're living in a
No,
really,
for sure. That rough around the edges thing, builds character. And unfortunately, yeah, it's a whole different thing now. I guess you got to find that balance. It's very difficult, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think my father was the least bit concerned how I felt
Right.
when he talked to me
Mm.
or told me I got to do something, right? Now I'm seeing, examples of well, I don't mean to upset you, but I'm just trying to teach you.
we came in,
That doesn't really, I don't think that works. You know what I'm
It
saying?
doesn't. And that's the example what Rob's talking.
Yeah, if it's not brought to you in the way that makes an impact, it goes in one ear, out the other. I would think. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, but
so
yeah,
My brother threw iPads in the trash can in front of the kids. I'm like, you went back and got them, right? He goes, no. He
no.
goes, I needed to wait for the trash man to come so the kids see that that trash bin is going in that trash can and those iPads were in there.
he
I
means
respect
And
it.
was that?
he means business. That's
Yeah, because
important.
if not, they're just gonna keep pushing you around and they're gonna try to find that spot
Yeah.
where, dad or mom or uncle even is gonna crack.
Also, they probably gonna remember that forever. You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
made an impact for sure. You know what I'm saying? So they learned something from it.
But
So
go ahead, Chris.
no, I got two girls.
I was literally
Six,
about to ask how many kids you guys got.
I got two that I know of. So it's a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old. They're 13 months apart. And, you know, at first they're just totally going at it. Then, when one of them is getting punished by me, the other one is coming to her defense.
Right.
So I'm liking to seeing them together, but now that they're working together, now if one's lying, the other one is going along with it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate having each other's back because at the end of the day, that's all they got.
Right. That's one of the most important relationships they're gonna have for sure.
Right, with siblings. And, we'll go through it. I mean, last year was harder than this year. Next year's going to be harder. This year's easier than last year. The following year is going to be easier. And I think it's just staying involved, letting them know that you really, really care for them, no matter what.
I think that's at the end of the day the main thing, just showing that you're there for them, that you really care, that there's really love, and I guess give them as much game as possible. And at the end of the day, they're gonna grow up and live their own lives. And
So
hopefully you guided them enough as a parent, as a family, that they make, not as
yeah.
many mistakes as maybe we did, or whoever.
So what are your future dad stats? We call it dad stats. What are you thinking about?
What
Or
what
what
is
would you like to see yourself as a father?
um I mean, I definitely want to have kids, you know what I'm saying? And I think it's going to be an extension of how I am as an uncle, except now I'm there all the time. But the tactics and the way I do things, I mean, it's really just me, but it'll pretty much be the same.
Yeah.
But I love a lot of the old school ways. I love things that build character. Um, I feel like a lot of, especially boys, like men are not men no more these days, and you know what I mean, things like that. I feel like it's important. I'm not super religious, but I definitely see myself as a Christian, and I have those type of values. Um, so yeah, those are
I
a few of the things.
so
And what I would really do, me being, into music and coming from a community that absolutely did not um, support basically, my dreams, not just dreams, but my passion is I would definitely really pay attention if, you know, not everyone has such a strong passion in something like this, like I did, but if a kid does, I feel like you got to feed that and support that as much as you can.
100%.
And that in our culture, you know, it doesn't happen as much unless you go be a lawyer, doctor. At least let me speak for myself. That's how we were raised. My mom always put that in our minds, and there was nothing wrong with it. But you know, things would have been probably different if I had this the support in what I really wanted to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But you're educated too, right? I mean, book
Sure.
educated as
And to
well.
be honest with you, I mean, I was always good in school and stuff. And actually, that comes from, I remember as thinking like, almost like I got to make my mom proud and keep her happy. So I got to get these grades. And once I do my thing, then I can do my thing over here, basketball, music, whatever. You know what I mean? And that
Yeah.
kind of, that made me, I was always good in school. Then I started going to college. I graduated UCLA. At that point, I'm really doing music, and my mom was on my ass. My brother went to medical school, and what are you doing? Even though they never went to no
Sure.
college, you know what I'm saying? But that's what was expected of us. And eventually, you know, I really went for her. I appreciate it now because things worked out. But you know, if I have a kid and I see there's a burning passion like that, because not too many people have it the way I had it, I would try to feed that, you know.
Rob.
So I was gonna say, when it comes to going after your dreams, chasing your dreams, I remember it was early 2000s. I'm living in the East Coast, New York area, and that was the first time I heard about you. I had friends from
You're
LA.
aging right now, bro.
Well, this was
No, I'm
2000,
kidding. I'm totally kidding. My first
2005.
project came out 05.
Oh, I remember that. And you know, I'm raised in the East Coast, Big Pun, Big L, Biggie, totally Nas, different roots, right, of rap. And LA is different, you know. And I remember a friend of mine playing a CD of yours. His name is Dave. And I was like, Dave, I was like, this is some sick stuff. Like and he's like, bro, sick. He's like, and the guy's Armenian. And I was like, no way. I was like, I was mind blown, right? So when it comes to your music, and I have my son that listens to your music, his friends listen to your music as well.
Amazing.
What would you say to them to chase their dream and to not give up and just be like, you know, I'm not going to do this, just to chase what they're following?
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot right now. First of all, like I said, I was raised in Europe, so a lot of my influences was the guys you just named. Even though I say I'm from LA and I love LA, but LA music didn't raise me. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, LA hip hop is more street, more gangster, gang banging culture and things like that. Over there, it was more lyrical and stuff like that. So that's what I was into. But yeah, you know, at that time when I started, I was really the first, you know what I'm saying? And so I really went against, um, honestly, for the last 20, almost 20 years, I've just been going against everything. Like, it's hard to say. It's almost like your family, your friends, everyone is like, what are you doing? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they look at you like it doesn't make any sense. And even when you start having a little bit success, they don't really fully get it. You know what I'm saying? And it was always, what are you doing with your life? What are you know what I mean? What are you, why, what, then what? Okay, now what? Okay, you got a song with this person. So what? Okay, you know what I'm saying? And they don't understand that it's, you know, music and art and things like that is just something that's in you. It's hard to explain if you don't have that in you. You know what I'm saying? So what I would say to the young people is, if you really have a passion like that, like, you just got to ignore the noise. Hopefully you'll have a support system. And I do think today is a little bit different. Today, our culture is different. The world is different. There's a lot more information. You know, there's YouTube, there's social media. There's so many things I didn't understand back in 05 about the music industry. You know, again, we come from a community when no one had done it before. So there's not like I have an older person guiding me, or
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like if you're from a community where your cousin works at a label or your uncle worked with Dr. Dre or so and so, you know what I'm saying? Like it's different. We really had zero people except a couple friends that were just down to do this with me, and we were just kind of shooting in the dark and doing it. You know what I mean? Um, so I would love to like be that support system if any of my nieces, nephews, future kids, or whatever would have passion like that, because I would really push for it. You know,
So you,
education, college is extremely important, but not necessarily for everyone, depending on what you want to do with your life. You know.
yeah, so I mean, having that in you, that passion, like you said it twice now, to have that passion run that deep inside you where you're committed, right? When that happens, if you don't have that support, what type of experiences have you had, or is that something that could be exposed to a child where they can learn that type of character, or it's in you or it's not? You're either passionate or you're not.
Yeah, I think from my experience of seeing a lot of young people throughout the years, you know, every Armenian that tried to rap came contacted me at one point. And I always think it's weird that since 2005, there's been some names that everybody probably heard of locally and stuff like that, but no one stuck to it. You know what I'm saying? And some people did more than others. Some literally did it for a few months and left it alone. And that's what I mean with like, is it a real passion or not? Because these type of things, it's a very difficult road. It's a very uncertain road. Um, it's not the safe way, like going to college, becoming a lawyer, doctor, whatever. So you really gotta have that passion. So you want to do it regardless of is it making money, is it successful or not. My free time, I was already always making music. I'm just looking for more free time. You know what I'm saying? So if
Yeah.
you have that kind of passion would be in you, I think. And you only really know as the years progress. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone pretty much I started with doing music at that time, they gave up many years ago. You know what I'm saying? Um, and I don't blame them because life gets in the way and stuff. But eventually, they didn't stick to it for whatever reasons. Um, so yeah, it takes a lot of commitment and sacrifice.
Well, the music you put out definitely has a lot of messages, has a lot about you, a lot about your upbringing, a lot what's going on around us. And when you compare old school rap, new school rap, and it's very different, right?
Very.
I I do appreciate what you put out there because it's mind provoking. You think about it, you know, it's something that you know Pac always rapped about, things that Nas rapped about it that makes you think, you know. And I love that my son listens to rap, by the way, just because it's you think about it, you think about the lyrics. It's very complex, you know. We got to hear it over and over and over again. What would you say to this generation with the social media, everything that is against us, right? Mentally, you know, just trying to get us down. What is the positive outlook that you'd give towards these youngins, these ballers, these guys that are trying to make it and trying to break outside their mold or their family's mold? What would you say to them?
Well, first of all, I want to say that what you just said about music having a message and stuff like that, like someone like me growing up again without like a real father or father figure in the house, like music affected me so much. I've said this in a lot of hip hop like interviews that like hip hop was almost like a father figure because the rappers we looked up to, they were like people of character and talking about real things, even though I might have not gone through the exact same life they were going through, but it was so many similarities that I could relate to, and it resonated with me strongly. You know what I'm saying? Now music is very different. Um, Unfortunately, there's still a lot of like really good hip hop out there, but you know the mainstream, what gets pushed down people's throat, you know, it's very different. You know, so I don't know how it's gonna affect this generation really. But what was your question? I went off course.
But generally, the inspiration to this younger generation that I can't even reach. I'm trying to reach to my son, even to their friends, but they're not going to listen to me. I'm outdated or whatever it may be, but they listen to you. What would it be that?
I always kind of think about myself when I was younger and how certain things affected me. And I try to like think of that when I'm making music, or I used to go to like schools, whether it was Armenian schools or just local schools, and have these talks and stuff, do like a song performance, and we would have Q&As, usually around like Armenian genocide events, and then we would start talking about different things. And like I would see like the kids are curious, you know what I'm saying? And they're very impressionable. um, and I feel like so much comes with like confidence, of like having the confidence of just being true to yourself and do what you really want to do. That's one of the hardest things in life, is just stick to what you want to do. Societal pressures from when you're a kid, peer pressure to when you get older, responsibilities, this, that. It's like it's so difficult to just stay true to what you want to do. Um,
And if you don't, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say all the people I looked up to, growing up, whether it was Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, or it was in in music, whatever. It was like, they stuck to what they believed in, and they inspired people like me. And I try to, do whatever I can to be the same.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if maybe we can dumb it down to not such big achievements, but it's like, okay, well, you shot the ball once, didn't go in.
Yeah.
Shoot it again. It's okay. Shoot it again. It's okay. And then for us not to get tired, because Armin, one of the things that Rob and I sometimes talk about is people say kids aren't the kids they used to be. Honestly, I think parents aren't the parents they used to be.
Right.
So to throw that blame on the kid and say, hey, you're not listening. When I was a kid, well, guess what? When I was a kid, my dad wasn't the way, I'm being towards you, or what have you, so on and so forth. So, these discussions are never discussions where you're going to come up with an answer. And the reason why we love having different guests on was because, dads don't have a platform. We don't sit around the coffee table like, moms do. Not that that's all they do. And talk about it. We don't do that, So Rob and I are like, okay, well, let's see what Armin's thoughts are on parenting. Let's see what, whoever it is.
I think what you guys doing is dope, because like you said, there's first of all, there's no answer to anything, like you said. And then I don't think men really talk about these things that much. So it's definitely a different, to get perspective from different people, for sure.
It's
Awesome.
it's like a stigma. I feel like sometimes, even when dads get together, and even at their own children's events, whatever it may be, practices, school events, it's a stigma. They're like, let's talk about sports. Let's talk about the weather. Rarely talk about.
We're not talking about some issue your kid's going through, unless maybe you're really close with that person. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the thing, where it's like the real aspect of it, getting real, actually bringing up conversation about what's going on with our kids, with our environment around us, with the world, whatever it may be. I really think it's important for people to talk about it, because if we don't talk about it, what's going to happen? It's just going to be put underneath the carpet and just going to be swept away, and we'll never talk about it again. And that's what we're seeing a lot of today. So
it'll start building in other ways, and maybe be expressed eventually in the wrong way.
The wrong ways. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. And you earlier said something about you can't blame the kids, like, because I've seen it, you know what I mean? Where sometimes, I'm not even a parent, so I don't want to talk down on parents, but sometimes a parent
You're not, but you're observing it.
Sometimes a parent might not understand that this kid is just a kid, and their brain is not fully developed, and you know what I'm saying? And that might not be the approach to try to teach them something, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah.
Yeah, but what makes you think you know that? What? Forget that. How is it that you, not as a parent, can see that, but that parent is behaving in that same way?
I don't know because I don't know what the parent has gone through. I don't know what kind of traumas they've gone
That's
through.
right.
A lot of times we act with our emotions, you know what I'm saying? And something that happens might trigger some different in me than the other person, you know? Some parents had kids way younger. Like if I had a kid in my early 20s, I didn't know anything. Like, you know what I'm saying? I probably would have been the worst parent. Um, so yeah, you know, I don't know. There's all these factors that come into play. You know what I mean?
There's been a lot of times where Rob and I, you know, there's a situation going on, and I'll talk to him about it, and he's like, "Hey, well, what about this?" Or with him, and I'll be like, "What about that?" And it really works because if I'm caught up, if I have my own triggers and my kids are dinging on my triggers, that doesn't mean that Rob's approach might not work. So it's
Right.
that patience, it's that commitment, it's that listening, all that stuff you talked about. But we want to be the first ones to find out when you're going to be having a kid, brother.
100%. That's a given. That would be horrible of me if you guys are not the first. I'm hitting the group text for sure.
Love it, love it. Well,
So the one thing I appreciate is the old school being there, the fundamental. New school, we're adapting as every day goes on, right? Social media is a whole different beast we're not familiar with, in the sense of how much influence it has over our children. Um, but I'll say, especially with my child, the guidance from music, from people that are doing the positive things in social media, like you, we really appreciate it. And this is something that goes, I mean, after a while, the dad's not cool anymore, and they're listening to you. They listen to you and they listen to your music, and we really appreciate everything.
I really appreciate it, bro. Yeah, I'm very aware of like you are what you consume. So, you know, even for myself at this stage, I try to stay away from negative energies, whether it's online or in person. And I feel like, you know, if I'm putting any type of content out there as much as possible, without being the old, you know, guy that's not in touch anymore, but still being like inspirational and positive. You know what I mean? So,
awesome.
yeah.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother.
We
Well, thank
appreciate it.
you. Thank you for having me. And let me shout out Erratic, my man Vahe with that hat, because I was wearing this, we were both wearing the same hat when we met. That's actually why we start or how we started talking. But yeah, shout out my man V. For sure.
And I don't know which episode he came up, Chris. He was here. Oh my, it was his
Oh, he
episode.
was on the show?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
that was
We were this was season one, like 4 or 5
a
years.
while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
That's
And
my brother from a very long time. You know, he used to be a DJ, DJ Lagger. So when I was doing music in the 2000s, he was a DJ, and then he had that clothing line, Erratic, which he still has. But then he became part of Dave's Hot Chicken, you know, and they built an empire now.
so that night we were having the donuts. Remember the donuts? Those
Oh yeah, he had the Dream Donut truck
the
too.
cream donuts, solid. So yeah,
My
this
guy.
hat, absolutely the best hat to rock, other than a Yankees hat. But I'm not going to say anything else about that. Yankees did not make the playoffs this year. But great to have you on the show, Armin.
Thank
And
you guys, man. I appreciate it.
and please keep us updated on what goes on. Hopefully, a family might be in the picture next couple
And
of years.
we're starting to sound like his grandparents and his mom.
Why you sounding like my uncle right now? You're not that much older than me. I can't.
Oh man.
I'm 42 going on 75. So
That's beautiful.
please, everyone out there, all our listeners, check out Armin on Instagram at Armin.
Yes,
And all his music is on Apple everywhere. It's available. And Candle of the Devil is also available. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
thank you guys.
Thank you, brother.
Much love.
See ya.
Thank you next time. Real Dad Talk.